Good morning, everyone. It's Tuesday, the 10th, make that the 17th day of July, 2018, 10 o'clock. This is the Weber County Commission meeting. Present to my right is Commissioner Scott Jenkins. To my left is Commissioner James Ebert, and I'm Commissioner Jim Harvey. Our invocation will be led today by Mr. Lynn Taylor. Our Pledge of Allegiance will be given by Brooke Stewart, and our Thought of the Day will be given by Commissioner James Ebert. We'll go to that point. Mr. Taylor.
Father in heaven, we are grateful for this time of year when we can reflect on the blessings that we have of freedom and liberty and the opportunity to chart our own course in government. And we pray that as we do so, that we will be mindful of the examples that have gone before us and how we can help to preserve those things for our posterity to come. And this we ask in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Chair, please. I have two quick quotes. The first is by Elbert Hubbard. The world is moving fast. The world is moving so fast these days that a man who says it can't be done is generally interrupted by someone actually doing it. And the second is by Steve Jobs. Great things in business, and I would add government, are never done by one person. They are done by a team of people.
Thank you. And that is true. Appreciate that. For those of you who come more frequently, we've made a decision in this commission body to change our agendas. Last week, there was quite a number of folks that were here. Many of them came for a particular presentation. But that being said, many times the audience comes and they have a need or a want or a desire to address the commission. And out of respect for the private citizens' time, we've moved public comments on our commission agenda to the first of the meeting. That being said, if there's anything on the agenda that you'd like to have a public comment or address the commission, we invite you to come forward and state those things. And so now we'll have the thought of the day, well, we just had the thought of the day. Our public comments will be first instead of last after we've taken the action. You can now talk first before the actions instead of after we've taken all the actions and talk last. And so this is the time now before we go to our consent items or our action items. We invite the public to come forward and please limit your comments to 3 minutes if you have any questions or suggestions for the commission. None being recognized, then the time for public comments is now closed, and we'll move now to item number F on our agenda, which are the consent items. I will read those now. Item number 1 is a request for approval of warrants 1492 to 1494 and 429961 to 430168 in the amount of $811,941.43. Item 2 is a request for approval of purchase orders in the amount of $82,460.40. Item 3 is a request for approval of minutes for meetings held on July 10th, 2018. Item 4 is a request for approval of minutes for the Board of Canvassers meeting held on July 10th, 2018. Commissioners, just by way of reference, that was the required meeting by state statute that was held later that same day, 2 different meetings. Item number 5 is a request for approval of new business licenses. Item 6 is a request for a motion to cancel the regular commission meeting scheduled for July 24th, 2018. The next meeting will be held July 31st, 2018. And item 7 is a request for final approval of the Sunset Equestrian Cluster Subdivision, Phase 1, consisting of 20 building lots and 14 agricultural preservation parcels. Commissioners, I'd entertain any questions pertaining to the consent items. Go ahead, Commissioner.
Okay, I had a few questions I was unable to get the answers to yesterday. For capital improvements, $202,000. Do you have any idea what capital improvement that was?
Mr. Taylor?
I do not have that level of detail today for the summary.
Yeah, I tried to get that information yesterday and couldn't. I just wondered, I don't have any issues or any reason why I think we shouldn't approve it. I just, when those come through, you'd like to know which capital project we're approving here.
I respect that and the level of detail. We do have someone in the county that knows. I just can't report to it now, but relating to that, most of those items are pertaining to the invoices cleaning up on the north branch of the library.
But you're not sure.
But I am not sure.
Yeah, okay, I don't have any problem with that. I make a motion to approve this.
Okay, have a motion?
I have a second with a quick comment. It looks like one of the major areas, the Weber County Golden Spike Event Center. I'm wondering, Commissioner Harvey, would that be related to the
RV park?
And then the other 117,000, which probably makes up the larger portion, was the Wadman Corporation, which either could be related to the library or back to the RV park. So my guess is that both of these are dealing with the RV park at the Golden Spike Arena.
So you do have the detail there.
Well, I just looked over on
The email.
by vendor. I'm looking at by vendor, and those are the two largest, and Wadman is presently working on the RV park, maybe finishing up a little bit on the library, but working into the RV park. And those will both be under capital improvements.
One other question,
Okay.
Commissioner, you'd know this. When it says at the county fair, premiums, what does premiums go to? You know
Premiums.
that?
Premiums are the amounts that are paid or anticipated to pay out for instance, if someone were to win the best of show for the home arts or for the livestock shows, or if you participate in a horse show or a draft horse show. The premium is the money that is won when the people come to participate should they do well in their class.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? We have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any other questions before I call for the vote? None being recognized, then I'll do that now. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries unanimously. Thank you. We'll now move on to item number G on our action items, which is a request for approval of a resolution of the County Commissioners of Weber County appointing a member to the Weber County Career Service Council. The presenter on that is our Administrative Services Director, Ms. Sarah Swan. Ms.
Good
Swan.
morning.
Good morning.
Under Utah Code, we're required to have a 3-member bipartisan career service council. This council hears employee grievances. The term should be 3 years and expire June 30th of each year in staggered terms. Unfortunately, this hasn't been looked at in quite some time. I think our current members have been 10 plus years, so we should have been doing this some time ago. But we'd like to appoint a new member to this council. We had a list of 6 names. From those 6, they have to be persons in sympathy with merit principles. They have to be residents of Weber County, and they cannot be employed by the county, and they cannot hold any other government office. So from those 6 names, we had some individuals who held government office or were outside of the county. We chose Jan Zogmaster, who is a former Weber County Commissioner, obviously sympathetic to merit principles, living within the county, and we feel like she would do an excellent job at representing our employees to hear these grievances. So this is simply to appoint Jan to our Career Service Council, and we will look at these continuing each year. So next year again on June 30th, and then the following year as well, so that our 3-member group is up to date.
A question from me is, have you spoken with Ms. Sogmaster?
Absolutely.
Very good. And she was agreed to serve then?
She was happy to serve again for
Great.
this county again.
Of our existing 3, before this appointment is made, which person would drop off?
Craig Henninger is dropping off, and Craig has already resigned his position.
He resigned his position, so that would leave Marcia Owen and Bob Hunter with Jan Zogmaster as the 3 members of that commission. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, Commissioners, we have a request to appoint Jan Zogmaster to the Career Service Council of Weber County. Any questions relating to that? None being recognized, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Motion and a second. If there's no more questions, it's a resolution.
32.
Resolution number 32. Fatima, go ahead.
Commissioner Ebert,
Aye.
Commissioner Jenkins.
Aye.
And Chair Harvey.
Aye, that resolution 32 passes unanimously. Thank you. Item number 2 is by Sean Wilkinson. It's a request for approval of the first reading of an ordinance amendment related to the surplus property disposal and moving Title II, Chapter 9, Article 10 to the new chapter within Title II. Sean is our Director of the Community Development Department.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
We have a few amendments, and this is the first reading that is proposed of this ordinance. What we are looking to do is to add some clarifications and just make more clear the requirements that the county will follow when disposing of surplus property. So in some of the new sections, we have added clarifications relating to the county receiving fair market value in exchange for the sale of real property. A new method for distributing funds received from the sale of a parcel which was sold off to the county at tax sale. We've created a new method for determining if, how, why, and to whom the county will sell property. Sometimes there are things related to specific properties where we have to make a decision as to whether or not we want to sell that property that will cause future problems for adjacent property owners. We've also defined a preferential interest in property. So if someone has a previous ownership interest, or if they are adjacent property owners, they have a preferential interest over just the general public as far as it goes to purchasing property. And then the last thing that we are looking to do is create a new chapter for the disposal of surplus property. So that will move from Chapter 9 in Title 2 to a new chapter, Chapter 21, which will now account for the disposal of surplus property. Those are the amendments, and you have the ordinance in front of you. Do you have any questions for me?
Commissioners, I'd entertain any questions for Mr. Wilkinson.
So, Sean, as I read this and go through it, it's hard to, I'm used to the legislative side where they underline and,
Yes.
so you can see what's been added, what hasn't, what you're trying to do here. As I read it, everything appeared to be in order. I don't have any issues with it. In the future, it'd be really nice if we could do that.
Where this is the first reading, for next week or the next commission meeting on the 31st, I will have that legislative edit to you, and I will email that in advance as well.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
That's great. Thank you. With that, inasmuch as this is a first reading, is there any other questions for Mr. Wilkinson? None being heard, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion, we approve the first reading of the ordinance amendment related to surplus property disposal and moving Title 2, Chapter 9, Article X to a new chapter within Title 2 and the associated changes that Mr. Wilkinson has addressed.
Have a motion
Second.
and a second. No questions being heard, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Wilkinson. Our next item, Ms. Stewart, is a request for approval of a local transportation funding agreement by and between Weber County and Huntsville Town to establish the terms related to the Huntsville Town Highway 166 project. Ms. Stewart, thank you.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, before you today is the funding agreement for the Huntsville Town Highway 166 project. It's a pedestrian safety connection. It's also known up there as Huntsville Corner. So the original funding agreement was approved by this commission in February for $148,024 in sales tax funds. And so after that funding was approved, Huntsville put the project out to bid, and they invited 13 contractors to bid on the project. Of those, 16 attended the pre-bid, or 6 attended the pre-bid meeting, and only 2 ended up bidding on the project. So the winning bid actually came back significantly more than what the original cost estimate was for. So Huntsville Town got the 2 contractors together to go over the differences between those 2 bids, and they found that the new bid was higher just because general construction costs have increased. They had planned to use some on-site fill that they realized would be inadequate and would settle, so they had to include the cost of that new fill, as well as they didn't anticipate any traffic control cost, and there was a misstated unit for some fractured rock. So Huntsville Town came back to the Transportation Subcommittee and explained the circumstances and requested to submit an amendment. That amendment was reviewed by the subcommittee and WACOG ended up approving a recommendation to fund an additional $81,115 in sales tax dollars for that project. So the total cost of the project from our sales tax dollars would be $229,139. And Huntsville Town, in collaboration with Weaver Pathways, is contributing $30,300 towards the project. Are there any questions that I can answer for you?
Commissioners, entertain any questions for Ms. Stewart? No questions being recognized. I'll ask for a motion.
I will make a motion that we approve this. It's amazing to me how the price of construction goes up, but in this case specifically, the scope changed, and I understand that when you look at the bill. So, yeah, I have no problem making a motion to approve this.
Second.
Motion and a second. If there's no other questions, none being heard, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you, Ms.
Thanks.
Stewart. Appreciate you. Item number 4 is Mr. Brown. Mr. Wilkinson will be presenting that, a request for approval of a contract by and between Weber County and West Coast Code Consultants, Inc. for plan review and inspection service. Mr. Wilkinson.
Thank you, Commissioners. Mr. Brown is out of town, and so I will be presenting today. But this is for our Building Inspection Division. This is a contract with West Coast Code Consultants for plan review and building inspection services on an as-needed basis. The contract goes up to approximately $50,000, which is what we had in the 2018 budget. And we have worked with West Coast Code Consultants in the past, and would like to see this contract approved to continue to use their services.
Again, Mr. Wilkinson, just this is your recommendation or the recommendation by the department, is that correct?
That is correct, and this did go through the procurement process. West Coast Code Consultants were the only bidder for this contract.
I respect that. Commissioners, I'll entertain any questions pertaining to this.
Question.
Please.
So, right now, what's your backlog on inspections and on permits?
Right now, we are approximately a week, 3 days to a week out on inspections, depending on what type of inspection it is.
Okay, that's inspections. What about approval of permits?
On the plan reviews, so the state requires us to have the first review done within 14 days. In order to do that, we only have one plan reviewer right now, and so we do have to outsource some of the plans that we receive. All of our solar permits and everything related to the Summit development at Powder Mountain goes to West Coast Consultants already, and then when we have a backlog or we need to make sure we meet that 2-week time frame, we do start sending plan reviews to our consultants.
By law, are you required to have permits permitted by, is there a time?
There's not a time for the actual building permit. Just right now, just for that first review, has to be done within 14 working days.
So I had a daughter apply for a permit about a year ago, and a year and a half. It took 6 months to get a permit approved. Is that possible?
It depends on whether there is geology reviews involved. It depends on the health department, if there's water and septic systems to review. It depends on a lot of different things. We hope it doesn't take 6 months for someone to get a building permit. That seems like a long time unless there are other factors that are playing into that.
Well, I don't understand that. This was 3 rooms on the back of a house. It had no sewer, no water. It had a little electrical, and it took 6 months. It took a month longer to get it permitted than it took to build it.
I would like to look at that person.
Yeah, I would like to have you do that, because I'm a little amazed by that, especially with what you're presenting right now. It's like Godfrey, 14 days, and it just went on, and I just don't understand. Maybe after this is over, we could get together, because I would really, like I say, it took a month longer to get it permitted than it took to get it constructed, and that amazes me.
I would be happy to sit down with you and we can go through this.
All right.
That sounds
Thank
like
you
a
very
great
much.
idea.
Appreciate that, Sean.
Thank you.
Great. Any more questions, commissioners?
Really quickly. So I think there's a tremendous amount of value by going out of house. We do it with engineering. We're looking at doing it with inspections. We do it with planning. One of the issues I think Commissioner Jenkins is addressing is that this process doesn't just sit specifically within the county. There's geology requirements, there's fire service requirements, there's health department requirements. I am very surprised to hear that timeline. I know when about 3 years ago, we brought all of those entities together and we have a weekly or bi-weekly meeting or bi-monthly meeting where we review everything that's in the pipeline
Yes.
to see if it's not going to meet those 14 days or moving forward, because we had several large subdivisions that were 6-8 months out, and that just doesn't work in the private sector. I mean, that's your profit margin, especially with construction costs going up. So I think any time that we can outsource into the private sector to create a smoothing effect for costs for staffing, it's more efficient, and it's financially sustainable, because on our high points we don't want to do all our hiring, right? We want to smooth that out. So I appreciate you looking into inspections to also bring this methodology to all aspects of community development.
Yes.
Commissioners, any more questions? I have some notes of Sean. I remember that we initialized a meeting with Paul Ray, who's the president of the Northern Wasatch Home Builders Association, and invited others to come. I recognize that there were some processes in place a year ago that now have been drastically streamlined.
Correct.
Some in part based on that meeting, but in the last 6 months, our timelines have gone to a certain length and then been shortened considerably. While I can't give you much fact or detail to that, in the building market, where I still hear from some of the home builders, at least, and not so much commercial, but some of the home builders, I'm having a good. There's a lot better feedback now than there was certainly a year ago, and I commend you and your department for the strides you've made there. Relating to Commissioner Jenkins' comments, or if there are ways to continue to be more efficient, great, but it's as we know, Sean, and what you've been doing is to make Weber County the most friendly place to do business with, especially as it relates to building. One of the things that supports that is that it was anticipated Weber County's growth, especially in the home market, where that market was at 1.75 a year ago, and we actually realized a 3.51% growth, so more than double what it's been. And I commend you and your staff for doing a great job in streamlining these processes, making them quicker. So while I'm anxious to hear what the result was with Commissioner Jenkins, his situation was, I appreciate the work that's been done in the last 6 months and commend you for that. Thank you. Commissioners, with that being said, I'd entertain a motion one way or the other on item number 4 on our agenda.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. If there's no more questions, I'll entertain a vote then. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Wilkinson, appreciate that. Commissioners, by virtue of process, we need to go into a closed session. Fatima, if you would call for that.
Probably need to say
I'll
that
make a
it's.
motion.
Okay, that'll be good.
I'll make a
Commissioner?
motion that we enter to a closed meeting to discuss strategy relating to imminent or ongoing litigation.
You have a motion
Second.
and a second, thank you.
Commissioner Ebert?
Aye.
Commissioner Jenkins?
Aye.
Commissioner Harvey?
Aye, thank you. We'll now be in closed session and we'll resume when we're finished. we're back, we're done with closed session. This is a continuation of our commission meeting on the 17th day of July 2018. We've just come back from a closed meeting where no action was taken. We'll move now to item number I on our commission agenda for Commissioner Jit comments. Commissioners, are there any comments with any of us? None being recognized, I'll entertain a motion for item number J.
Motion to adjourn.
Recognize Commissioner Jenkins and a second by Commissioner Ebert. All in favor? Aye. We stand adjourned.